It's great.
Everybody come out of the last 2 days of practice healthy?
Yeah, everybody's good.
How did those last 2 days of practice go, and how important were they for you guys to have those 4 days of rest?
Well, the last two weren't rest, but I thought the practices were pretty good, and I thought, hopefully we got something accomplished. We'll know more as we move into this stretch, because we really don't have that many times to practice, or at least practice like that left. Maybe one stretch here over the next 3 weeks, but we need to make sure that hopefully we can build off all that work and get better. I thought all 12 guys that were able to go through it went through it. We maintained health. We got a little work together on both ends of the floor, so that's a positive.
Brad, you've talked about these last 12 games of being able to watch the combination of Rondo and Avery, and then Sully and Olynyk, these guys. How can you watch them in practice as well and judge them and how they play together in practice as opposed to a game?
Well, I'm more interested in each guy playing really well within what we're trying to do collectively, and I think practices have been spirited in large part because it's the same thing that we went back to in October. There's not a lot of difference up and down our roster, and so there's a lot of competitiveness in practice. And any day, your second team can beat your first team, and vice versa. And I think that that's been a positive. The guys seem to like to compete in practice. Guys seem to like to get after it. And I think that helps each and every individual. I think that keeps your practices pretty good even throughout the course of the long season.
You've said before that culture is the most important part of coaching, you think. This is your first year in the NBA, obviously. How do you feel that has gone so far? Obviously, you had the Keith Bogans thing earlier. You had, the pressures of a long losing season. How is the culture going, building that culture?
Well, I think there's a couple different ways to look at it. I don't know that we'll be able to truly measure it until we're down the road, even standing here at this time next year. But I think that the one way that you can measure it is the guys are still connected, and even with all the change that we had mid-season, I've been really pleased with how connected they are. You're all in the locker room before and after the game. It's a pretty positive locker room. The guys are they do root for one another, and I think that the things that we can really take from this year, as we wind down towards the end, is that we've got to be a team to achieve at our utmost, and the other part is that we've got to continue to build onto that continuity, and I think that's why it's so important to continue to play and play well, because it's you look at it, there's a lot of guys that are contracted to be back here, and so every chance we get, every single thing matters.
Has it been different trying to build that culture in the NBA than it was in college?
Yeah, different for me, Jay, because I didn't really build it. I was part of it and watched it grow, and then when I took over, it was as strong as it could get. Mm-hmm. So yeah, it's a new situation to come in, and this is a proud story, championship tradition, unlike any other in all professional sports, and so there's all of that add to it. But I think the most important thing is that you have guys that are willing to be moving in one direction, and I think I do feel like we have that, and we're not near as good as we need to be. Our results aren't near as good as we want to be, on down the line. But I think there's some good infrastructure in place with regard to kind of a new group of people getting together, not just coaches but players too. I mean, it's really been the way that they've come together has been positive.
Brad, in practice, you try several different combinations to determine your A team and your B team.
Yeah, more in the preseason. As we've gotten into games here and you have less practice time, it's hard to do much in practice other than a couple of drills or a couple of live things where you can really compete. So a lot of that's determined in the preseason and then throughout the games and the performance in the games, and then at times when you've got some change and overhaul, you're also throwing darts sometimes to see which will stick and what will best complement right now.
Brad, I know. About, after practices, going over with coaches and going over in your own mind, kind of constant evaluation. How much of that now and over the next however many practices you have left are going to kind of be focused on beyond the next 12 games, kind of breaking down?
Scott, it's an everyday thing. and it's not just about what happened today. It is with a look towards how we can help these guys get better in the future. What I'm spending all my time on continue to be preparing for practice, preparing for the next day. But we're starting to talk more and more about when Jeff Green leaves here this summer, what do we, along with Jeff, getting Jeff's input, think is most important for him to continue to grow into the player that he wants to be. And I think that's critical. But I think you're doing that whether you're 50 and 20 right now or what we are. So I think that's always in your mind as a coach, because you always have to balance that the right now with helping these guys get to where they want to go.
Coach, you guys haven't faced this Toronto team with Rondo in the lineup. Are you looking forward to seeing where his game is at going against a guy like Kyle Lowry?
Well, I think we've seen where he is. I mean, he's played against a lot of good players. I think Kyle Lowry's playing terrific. I think if he was arguably an all-star earlier, and when all-star voting would take place, and I think he would still be in that mix in the top 12 guys in the conference right now with how he's impacted the Eastern Conference. And so I give him a lot of credit. He makes a lot of plays that don't go talked about as well, especially late in the game. So that is a great challenge for him. He'll be guarding him some of the time. We'll be mixing up matchups as we go throughout the course of the game. But it's 96 straight minutes against a high level point guard.
Brad, the other guy, DeRozan, that sounds one of his best years. What have you seen on film with him?
So I think, Chris, this is what stands out is I've got a little sheet that I make for myself that is kind of my cheat sheet, study sheet as we go throughout the year. In January, his numbers were really good, and now they're better. And that's pretty unusual for a guy having his best year. Usually you start to become more targeted, you fall off, blah, 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 and he's just continued to go up. He's shot more threes recently than he has before. He continues to be a very good mid-range player, and he's dynamite on the post. He's a matchup problem for twos on the post. The first time I saw him play this year, I thought, man, he's a lot better than what I hear or reputationally. And I think he's a deserved all-star, and I don't think that stopped him from continuing to get better, which is a good thing too.
Brad, I know you've been asked this before, but if Walter were to leave for a college job, what kind of coach would he be?
Well, speaking in real general terms, I think he's a guy that is first of all, he's a great person. I think everybody in Boston knows that. And he knows basketball. He's been under all kinds of different styles of basketball. And he's just got a great personality that I think people would be drawn to, both in the community and also with regard to recruiting and everything else. Obviously, these guys, I've got a great staff. It's one of the things that, I've always believed that your team can be affected by team chemistry and staff chemistry. And, I think it's really important that, do your very best in our situation to maintain this level of chemistry, because it is very, very good.
Healthy, back in the same lineup from
Yes.
Brad, I think you have some understanding against the your thoughts on how you think
I was approached by that. I was approached about that because he doesn't play the second of back-to-backs. Mike actually approached me a couple of weeks ago about it, and I think it's great. And I think it's I think he's going to do a quarter or a half or something like that. Should be good insight. He knows he can't give too much insight. We'll go over all the rules on Monday in pretty good detail. But he'll be really good, right? I mean, people will be really interested to hear what he has to say. And I think that it's great that he's interested in doing that. He's a guy that he understands the big picture of. Right now, he's a professional basketball player, but in 12 years, he won't be. And so what does he do from there? And these are all great opportunities for him to grow and find, maybe find something down the road that he likes to do. We talked about coaching and talked about things. I think it's great when these guys start thinking like that and want to participate in things like that.
Do you think he'll follow in Tommy's tradition and criticize the refs?
I would think that Rondo would probably be I don't know that would be taken as well for a current player to be so critical. So Mike will, I'm sure, direct the conversation appropriately. Thanks.